The star-speckled void of the neutral space station shimmered in the blackness of the galactic border. It was a structure of diplomacy, a place where fledgling species and ancient empires came to broker peace or weave deceit. The air inside was crisp, filtered through countless vents, and hummed faintly with the resonance of alien machinery. The delegation from Earth moved with purpose down the metallic corridors, their polished boots a rhythmic echo in the silence. Captain Rick Maddox led the group, his eyes scanning every shadow and junction with the meticulous attention of a man who had seen too many ambushes in his lifetime. He was built like a boulder, his frame solid and unyielding, his demeanor sharper than a vibroblade. Behind him strode Lieutenant Marcus Hayes, thin and wiry, but with an energy that crackled around him like a live wire. Hayes' quick wit and mastery of technology made him an invaluable asset in situations like this. Sergeant Alex Cole, a mountain of muscle carrying more firepower than a small platoon, walked with a predator's gait. At the rear, Dr. Nathan Pierce, the only civilian, adjusted the translator module strapped to his wrist, his face pale but determined. The meeting chamber loomed ahead, its towering doors sliding open with an ominous hiss. Inside, the Klurnax waited. They were massive, reptilian creatures with scaled hides that gleamed like polished stone. Their elongated skulls bore crests that flared with shifting colors, a biological display of dominance. The delegation leader, General Ilthak, towered above the others, his amber eyes narrowing as the humans entered. Maddox felt the air grow heavier, as though charged with an invisible threat. Still, he stepped forward, his voice steady. General Ilthak, we come in the spirit of peace and mutual prosperity. Humanity is eager to establish a fruitful alliance with the Klurnax Empire. Ilthak's mandibles clicked, a sound that reminded Maddox of knives scraping together. Humans, always so earnest. The alien's voice resonated deeply, a guttural growl that seemed to vibrate the walls. Your kind has ambition, but you are naive if you believe in peace among the stars. Alliances are forged by strength, not words. Dr. Pierce stepped forward, his voice trembling but firm. General, Earth has much to offer in terms of resources and technology. Cooperation would benefit us both. Ilthak's crest flared bright red. What you offer is servitude. The Klurnax take what they need. Words are a waste of breath. The room darkened as Ilthak gestured. Hidden doors slid open, revealing armed Klurnax soldiers. Maddox's instincts flared to life as he heard the unmistakable hum of energy weapons. His hand went to his sidearm, but he stopped short when he saw the sheer number of soldiers. They were surrounded. Ilthak's mandibles spread in what might have been a smile. You came here to negotiate. That was your first mistake. Your second was believing we would let you leave alive. Chaos erupted. The Klurnax fired first, their weapons emitting crackling beams of plasma. Maddox shouted orders, his voice cutting through the cacophony. Take cover. Return fire. The humans ducked behind the ornate pillars lining the chamber, their sidearms blazing. Cole's weapon barked with ferocity, its slugs ripping through the air and punching into Klurnax armor. Hayes pulled a small device from his belt and began hacking into the chamber's controls, his fingers moving like lightning over the interface. Dr. Pierce, unarmed and terrified, scrambled to safety behind a fallen beam. His heart pounded as he watched Maddox take down 2 Klurnax with precision shots. Hayes, we need an exit. Maddox barked. Working on it. Hayes snapped, sweat beading on his forehead. A panel lit up under his hands, and a distant door hissed open. There. Maintenance tunnels 2 levels down. Move, Maddox ordered. The team fought their way through the barrage of enemy fire. Cole took point, his heavy weapon roaring as he cleared a path. Pierce followed, clutching his translator module like a lifeline. Hayes stayed close to Maddox, providing cover as they retreated. The maintenance tunnels were narrow and dimly lit, their walls slick with condensation. The sound of pursuing Klurnax echoed behind them, growing louder with each passing moment. Maddox led the team through a labyrinth of twisting corridors, his mind working furiously. They needed a plan, and they needed it fast. Hayes skidded to a halt at a junction, his eyes scanning the alien symbols etched into the walls. We can head to the station's secondary control room. If I can access their systems, I might be able to buy us some time. Do it, Maddox said without hesitation. They reached the control room, a compact space filled with unfamiliar consoles and monitors. Hayes immediately got to work, his hands flying over the alien interface. The room's door sealed shut behind them, but the sound of pounding echoed as the Klurnax began to breach it. "Can you hold them?" Hayes asked without looking up. Maddox nodded to Cole, who grinned grimly and planted himself in front of the door, weapon ready. "Let them try," Cole growled. As Hayes worked, the monitors flickered to life, displaying schematics of the station and the Klurnax fleet docked nearby. His face darkened as he processed the data. "They're not just attacking us. They're preparing to launch an invasion of Earth." Pierce paled. "An invasion? How many ships?" "Too many," Hayes replied. "We have to warn Earth, but their communications are locked down tight." Maddox's jaw clenched. "Then we'll make sure those ships never leave this station." The pounding on the door grew louder, the metal beginning to buckle. Cole adjusted his stance, his weapon humming with lethal energy. "Whatever you're doing, Hayes, do it fast." "I'm in," Hayes said, his voice tense. "I can disable some of their systems, maybe sabotage their fleet prep. But it's a temporary fix unless we take out their central command. Then we take it out," Maddox said firmly. "We're SEALs. They think we're here to talk, but they're about to learn what we do best." The door burst open, and Klurnax soldiers flooded in. Cole opened fire, his weapon roaring as he held the line. Maddox joined him, every shot precise and lethal. Hayes finished his work and grabbed his gear. "This isn't over," Maddox said as they retreated deeper into the station. "They started this fight, but we're going to end it." Pierce looked at him, fear and determination battling in his eyes. They outnumber us, outgun us." Maddox cut him off, his voice cold as steel. "They don't outthink us. That's the difference." The group disappeared into the shadows of the station, leaving behind the wreckage of their defiance. The Klurnax had underestimated humanity. Maddox and his team intended to ensure it was a mistake they wouldn't survive. The dim maintenance tunnels of the station seemed endless, a maze of alien design that challenged both instinct and navigation. Each step was measured, every sound scrutinized, as Captain Maddox led the team deeper into the belly of the beast. The echoes of their boots were swallowed by the oppressive hum of the station systems, and the distant growls of pursuing Klurnax reminded them there was no margin for error. "Hayes," Maddox said, his voice low but firm. "Where are we on those schematics?" Lieutenant Hayes adjusted the jury-rigged datapad he had pieced together from alien components. The screen flickered, lines of unreadable Klurnax text scrolling by as he deciphered the layout. "We're close to an auxiliary armory," he said, glancing up. "If the schematics are accurate, we might find something we can use. Weapons, explosives, something to even the odds." Sergeant Cole, walking point, glanced back with a wolfish grin. "About time. I'm getting tired of picking them off with what little we've got." Dr. Pierce followed silently, his breath coming in shallow gasps. The translator module strapped to his wrist occasionally buzzed, picking up snippets of distant alien speech. He felt out of place among the soldiers, but the weight of their survival, and perhaps Earth's, pressed heavily on his shoulders. When they reached the armory, the door was sealed tight. Hayes crouched before the control panel, tools in hand, muttering as he worked to override the alien lock. "This thing's more secure than their command modules," he said, frustration leaking into his voice. "Can you get it open?" Maddox asked, his gaze flicking between the hallway behind them and Hayes' progress. "Give me 60 seconds, Hayes replied, fingers flying. 60 seconds felt like an eternity. The team formed a defensive perimeter, their weapons trained on the passageway. The air felt heavy, the kind of silence that prelude chaos. When the door finally slid open with a hiss, the team rushed inside. The armory was a treasure trove of alien weaponry and equipment. Rows of plasma rifles, explosive charges, and energy shields gleamed under faint, bluish light. Cole let out an appreciative whistle as he grabbed a Klurnax heavy weapon, testing its weight. "Now we're talking." Load up, Maddox ordered. Take only what we can carry and understand how to use. While Cole sorted through the arsenal, Hayes inspected a console in the corner. He powered it up, scrolling through what appeared to be logs of stored equipment. There's something interesting here, he said, beckoning Maddox over. Experimental tech. Looks like the Klurnax were working on EMP disruptors to disable enemy ships. Small enough to carry, powerful enough to shut down anything electronic within a couple of clicks. That could turn the tide, Maddox said, his voice grim but hopeful. Can you figure out how to use it? Hayes smirked. Already working on it. Pierce, standing near the doorway, flinched as the translator buzzed to life. A guttural voice spoke in Klurnax, harsh and clipped. Pierce's eyes widened as he processed the words. They're coming. A full squad, heavily armed. Maddox turned to Cole. Set up defensive positions. Hayes, get that EMP ready. Pierce, stay out of the line of fire. They had barely finished preparing when the sound of boots and guttural commands echoed down the corridor. The first Klurnax soldiers appeared, their hulking forms silhouetted in the doorway. Plasma bolts rained into the armory, searing the air. Cole fired back with a weapon he had just claimed, its plasma burst tearing through Klurnax armor. I like these toys, he shouted over the din. Maddox moved with lethal precision, his shots landing true even as he barked orders to his team. Hayes worked furiously on the EMP device, ignoring the chaos around him. Sparks flew as alien weaponry collided with human ingenuity, the room becoming a battlefield of smoke, fire, and resolve. The EMP device beeped, its readiness signal glowing faintly. Hayes grinned triumphantly. Maddox, we're good to go. Do it, Maddox ordered. Hayes activated the device and tossed it into the hallway. A pulse of energy erupted, a shockwave that crackled like thunder. The Klurnax soldiers froze mid-step, their weapons and armor shorting out in bursts of sparks. The humans didn't hesitate, taking down the stunned enemies with brutal efficiency. The aftermath was eerily silent. Hayes picked up the now-inert device, inspecting it with satisfaction. This thing is a game-changer, he said. We'll need to find a way to recharge it, but if we can use it again, we will, Maddox said firmly. Good work. Let's move before reinforcements arrive. As they left the armory, the team moved with renewed purpose. They had weapons, tools, and a plan, but the odds remained against them. Hayes studied his datapad as they traversed the tunnels. The station's central command is heavily fortified, he said, but if we can hit their primary generator on the way, we'll cripple their defenses. It'll buy us time to infiltrate. Cole cracked his knuckles. Just point me at what needs blowing up. The generator room was their next target. When they arrived, it was guarded by a contingent of Klurnax engineers and soldiers. Maddox signaled for silence, formulating a plan. Hayes, can you disrupt their comms? Maddox whispered. Already on it. Hayes replied, pulling out a modified alien device. A faint hum followed as the Klurnax soldiers' headsets crackled and died. Maddox gave the signal, and the team struck with surgical precision. Cole's heavy weapon roared, cutting down soldiers before they could react. Hayes used another EMP charge to disable automated defenses, while Maddox and Pierce planted explosives on the generator. The operation was swift and brutal. As the final charge was set, Maddox motioned for the team to retreat. They made it to a safe distance, just as the explosives detonated, the shockwave rocking the station. Lights flickered, and the hum of machinery dimmed. Hayes grinned as he checked his datapad. Primary systems are down. They'll scramble to repair it, but we've got a window. Maddox nodded, his face set with determination. Then we make our move. Central Command is next. Pierce looked at him, his expression a mix of fear and admiration. You really think we can pull this off? Maddox met his gaze, his voice steady. We don't have a choice. They wanted to see what humans are capable of. Let's show them. The team pressed on, deeper into enemy territory. The destruction they left in their wake was a testament to their skill and determination. They had turned the station's technology against its creators, but the battle was far from over. The heart of the Klurnax operation awaited, and the team knew it would take everything they had to win. The team advanced toward the station's central command, their movements precise and deliberate. Every corridor seemed to pulse with an ominous energy as the station's automated systems sputtered in the wake of the destroyed generator. The air was tense, charged with the knowledge that their presence was no longer a secret. Captain Maddox led the way, his weapon held steady, eyes scanning for any sign of movement. Behind him, Lieutenant Hayes checked his modified datapad, his fingers tapping quickly as he tried to stay one step ahead of the Clernax countermeasures. Sergeant Cole brought up the rear, the massive Clernax plasma cannon in his hands glowing faintly as it hummed with residual energy. Dr. Pierce followed, clutching his translator module like a talisman, his face pale but resolute. "The command center is 2 levels up," Hayes said, glancing at the schematic on his screen. "They'll have fallback systems to compensate for the generator loss, but we've bought ourselves some time." "Enough to get this done," Maddox replied. His voice was calm, unshaken, but every word carried the weight of the stakes they faced. The team reached a vertical access shaft, its walls lined with alien glyphs and illuminated strips of light. A faint hum indicated the lift system was operational. Maddox examined the controls, his brow furrowing. "Hayes, can you override this? We can't risk them locking us in mid-ascent." Hayes nodded, stepping forward and cracking his knuckles. "Give me a minute." As Hayes worked, Cole scanned the corridor behind them. The distant sound of heavy, methodical footsteps reached his ears, growing louder with each passing second. "We've got company," he said, raising his weapon. "How long, Hayes?" Maddox asked, his tone sharp but controlled. 30 seconds, maybe less if you stop asking," Hayes muttered, sweat beading on his forehead. The footsteps grew closer, accompanied by the guttural growls of Clernax soldiers. Maddox signaled to Cole, who nodded and moved to take up a defensive position. The hallway erupted into chaos as the first wave of Clernax soldiers appeared, their plasma weapons firing in rapid succession. Cole unleashed a barrage of fire, the plasma cannon roaring with each shot. Alien armor melted under the onslaught, and the narrow corridor filled with acrid smoke. Maddox joined him, his sidearm precise and unrelenting. "Hayes, now would be good." Maddox shouted over the din. "Got it," Hayes exclaimed as the lift door slid open. "Move," Maddox ordered. The team piled into the lift, Cole firing one last shot before the doors closed. The sound of combat was muffled as the lift descended, the small space filled with the heavy breathing of the group. "They're not going to make this easy," Cole said, his voice tinged with grim humor. "They don't have to," Maddox replied. "We're not here for easy." When the lift stopped, the doors opened to reveal the central command deck. The room was massive, dominated by a circular console surrounded by holographic displays. At its center stood General Ilthak, his towering form silhouetted against a backdrop of stars visible through the station's massive viewport. Around him, elite Clernax soldiers stood at attention, their weapons trained on the humans. "So," Ilthak growled, his mandibles clicking in a mockery of amusement, "the pests have scurried all the way to the heart of the hive. You talk a big game for someone about to lose." Maddox shot back, his weapon raised. Ilthak's crest flared, shifting through an array of vibrant colors. "Lose? You underestimate the strength of the Clernax. Your defiance is admirable, but ultimately futile." Maddox didn't reply. Instead, he fired, his shot aimed directly at one of the elite guards. The room erupted into chaos as both sides opened fire. The humans moved with practiced efficiency, their movements synchronized and deliberate. Cole's plasma cannon tore through the ranks of Clernax soldiers, its devastating firepower creating openings for the others. Hayes ducked behind a console, deploying the EMP disruptor he had modified. "Cover me!" he shouted, working quickly as plasma bolts scorched the air around him. Pierce stayed low, using the translator module to intercept and relay commands being shouted among the Clernax. "They're trying to lock us in," he called out. "Not gonna happen," Maddox said, taking down another soldier with a precise shot. Hayes activated the EMP, sending a ripple of energy through the command deck. The holographic displays flickered and died, and several Clernax weapons shorted out, leaving their wielders momentarily vulnerable. Maddox and Cole capitalized on the opening, cutting down the disoriented soldiers. Only Ilthak remained, his amber eyes blazing with fury. He stepped forward, his massive form seeming to radiate power. "You think you can challenge the might of the Clarnax?" he snarled, drawing a blade that pulsed with an ominous red glow. Maddox faced him, his weapon aimed steadily. "Challenge? No. And? Absolutely." Ilthak lunged, his blade slicing through the air with deadly precision. Maddox dodged, the edge passing mere inches from his chest. He countered with a shot, but Ilthak's speed was astonishing, the alien dodging with ease. Cole charged, his plasma cannon roaring. Ilthak deflected the shots with his blade, the weapon absorbing the energy. With a sweep of his tail, he sent Cole sprawling. "Hayes, any ideas?" Maddox called out, evading another strike. Hayes scrambled to the console, his hands flying over the controls. "I can overload the station's core, but we'll have about 5 minutes to get out of here." "Do it," Maddox ordered without hesitation. Hayes activated the sequence, alarms blaring as the station's systems began to destabilize. Ilthak roared in fury, his crest flaring brightly. He turned toward Hayes, his intent clear. Maddox intercepted him, firing rapidly. The shot slowed Ilthak but didn't stop him. Cole recovered, tackling the massive alien from behind and pinning him momentarily. "Go!" Cole shouted. "Not without you," Maddox replied, firing again to weaken Ilthak's defenses. Hayes grabbed Pierce and pulled him toward the lift. "We've got to move." Maddox and Cole exchanged a brief nod before delivering a final coordinated strike. Maddox's shots hit Ilthak's exposed flank, and Cole drove a blade into the alien's chest. Ilthak roared one last time before collapsing. With seconds to spare, the team raced to the lift, the station trembling as its core began to overload. They barely made it to the escape pods before the station erupted in a brilliant explosion, a testament to their resilience and ingenuity. As the pods hurtled through space, Maddox looked out at the debris of the once imposing Clarnax station. "They thought we'd negotiate," he said, his voice filled with grim satisfaction. "They didn't understand what we're capable of." The others were silent, their expressions reflecting a mix of exhaustion and triumph. They had survived, but the fight wasn't over. The Clarnax would remember this day, and humanity would be ready for whatever came next.